the terrifying serial killer that inspired the horror movie Scream. In the late summer of 1990, Gainesville, Florida was being absolutely terrorized by a string of brutal murders of college-aged girls. It all started when the bodies of 17-year-old Sonia Larson and 17-year-old Christina Powell were found in their apartment, brutally stabbed to death. Christina had been SA'd and mutilated, and both girls' bodies were posed in a suggestive position. Both girls were supposed to start their first year of college the following Monday. The very next day, the body of 18-year-old Krista Hoyt was found inside of her apartment. Life had been taken the exact same way. SA'd, stabbed, mutilated, and then posed. College students in and around Gainesville, Florida were terrified. Classes were meant to start that week. Thousands of students had just left their parents to come to college, and now 3 girls were brutally stabbed to death within 24 hours, and they lived like 2 miles away from each other. It was chaos in Gainesville, Florida. Students were withdrawing their enrollment into college or transferring schools within hours. Stores were sold out of padlocks, pepper sprays, tasers, baseball bats, you name it. And what was happening to the young girls in Gainesville, Florida started to make news around the country. Family and friends of college students were calling their loved ones to make sure they were okay. And that's exactly what happened to 23-year-old Tracy Pauls. Tracy was in her apartment when she got a call from a concerned friend. She told her friend, "Hey, I'm safe and I feel safe," because Tracy had a 23-year-old male roommate named Manny Thibodeau. Manny was like 6 foot tall, super strong, really big. He was like a former football player. Tracy felt absolutely safe living with this ginormous man. Tragically, within minutes of getting off the phone call with her friend, the killer broke into their apartment as well, unaliving Manny and then SAing, stabbing, mutilating, and posing Tracy the same way he did the other girls. Absolutely no one felt safe, and the police were feeling pressure to make an arrest, and they actually did make an arrest the following day. After receiving dozens of tips for the police to look into one particular creepy college freshman at the University of Florida, the police brought in 19-year-old Ed Humphries into custody. Ed was kind of odd and distant. He had this really bad scarring around his mouth that he actually got in a really bad car accident the year before, but that didn't matter to anyone. Ed looked scary, and people were scared. And despite not even having the same blood type as the killer, Ed was kept in police custody for 10 months. And even after they found the real killer and Ed's name was cleared, Ed Humphries said that his reputation and his life were permanently altered after being accused of these heinous killings. It was around this time that the investigators actually got a tip that there was a similar unsolved crime to their slayings in Gainesville. A year prior to the slayings in Gainesville, the bodies of 56-year-old Tom Grissom, 8-year-old Sean Grissom, and 24-year-old Julie Grissom were found stabbed to death inside the Grissom home. Julie had been SA'd, stabbed, and posed just like the college girls that were murdered in Gainesville. And the connection between the victims in Gainesville and now the Grissom family murder was actually leaked to the public, which led to a tip from a Louisiana local woman who said that she might know who's responsible for all of these deaths. That lady, Cindy, called the investigators and told them that she knew of a 37-year-old man named Danny Rowling. He had a history of being creepy towards women, a large rap sheet of armed robberies, and recently was let out of prison and living a half-mile away from the Grissoms at the time the Grissoms were killed. Cindy also told the investigators that after the Grissom family was stabbed to death, Danny told her husband that he had a problem and he liked stabbing people. Cindy girl, I appreciate you coming forward when you did, but how did you not connect the dots earlier? Cindy also told the investigators that 3 months before the killings in Gainesville, Florida started, Danny left Louisiana and no one knew where he was. So Danny is definitely looking like a really good suspect, but the police had to prove that he was in Gainesville, Florida at the time that these students were being killed. Danny had this history of armed robberies, and a week before the killings started in Gainesville, there was actually an unsolved armed robbery of a bank. The robber got away with a duffel bag full of money, but the bank teller actually booby-trapped the money, so when the robber tried to mess with it, that red dye would explode all over the money and make it worthless. Police actually found that duffel bag full of red stained money discarded in the woods, and with the duffel bag was a tape recorder, and what's recorded on that tape recorder you will never believe. On the tape was a man singing a little song that he had written about being a mystery killer. It was literally a confession right there for the police.
We push play and we hear this guy singing on there.
As soon as the tape starts playing, I hear Danny playing the guitar.
And even more unbelievable, at the end of the recording, the man said his full name, Danny Rolling. When Danny was arrested, at first he claimed that he was innocent, but he eventually did confess to the killings of all 8 victims. He never expressed remorse or gave a motive for why he did this, but it is said that all of the female victims look strikingly similar to his mother. Danny was sentenced to the death penalty, but first he was able to given a chance to speak, like speak to the victims, maybe apologize. That's what a lot of people do. Whether or not they accept apologies, that's on the family. But instead of doing any of that, Danny actually stood up and sang a song to his girlfriend.
Rules say I have to give Mr. Rawling an opportunity to have a say. You have anything you want to say, Mr. Rawling?
Well, sir, if it please the court, could I address the court?
Sure, say whatever you want to say.
Thank you. And, I recall the day I first saw you. I reached out to say I love you, but it was hard to say. I couldn't touch you. So tell me, baby, what were my words? All my tears run together.
Excuse me, Mr. Rawling.
Down the
Mr.
path
Rawling.
you choose
Mr. Rawling.
to follow.
Mr. Rawling.
So tell me, baby, what were my words? All my tears run together.
What a creep. Danny Rolling was executed in 2006. This was definitely something straight out of my nightmare for sure. Let me know if you guys ever heard this case before. If you watched the end, thank you so much. Let me know what case you will want to see next. And I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.